Thank you. First of all, let me just say thank you so much because I feel like this has been so many years in the making, and you never gave up on me. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll do my best, bearing in mind that I was first approached 30 years ago to do Road to Perdition.
Wow.
So
wow.
I have trouble remembering last week, never mind 30 years ago, but I'll do my best.
You entered comics in '88. Have you always been a kid that's been artistic and a kid that has had that gift?
Yeah, well, I would dispute gift. I've always loved comics. Always loved American comics.
Yeah.
And I started drawing my own when I was 4 years old. I can remember sitting by the fireside. I actually had a 24-issue run of comics that I'd drawn by the time I was about 10.
Wow.
So I'd always loved comics and I always drawn comics, and DC comics especially were that's where I fell in love with the medium.
Yeah. And for those listening, eventually when they see this, you're responsible, or your work includes Hellraiser, Swamp Thing, Doctor Who, Road to Perdition, many more. But yeah, what a eclectic bunch of comics you've involved yourself with. As an artist, do you like that challenge of not really two things being alike, right? You're always kind of doing a different thing each time.
I like a challenge artistically, certainly. I never really thought of it in terms of anything being that different. It was all it was the narrative that excited me, and just telling the story. And they're all stories, so that it was all the same. You're telling the story, you're illustrating the narrative.
Yeah, and you've done both. You've illustrated both DC and Marvel, right?
Yeah,
yeah. And I have to tell you, I think I know movies pretty well. I was not aware that Swamp Thing and John Constantine have a connection. I didn't know that. Yes. I can't believe I didn't know that.
The reprobate John Constantine. He made his debut in Swamp Thing. Oh well, a long time ago. My first Hellblazer was a Swamp Thing crossover.
Wow!
So I got to draw Swamp Thing in Hellblazer at that time.
Oh, I can't get over how I didn't know that.
Constantine tormented the Swamp Thing. It was one of the things that endeared him to everyone. Is torment of the Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Is there a favorite? I mean, we'll get to like your work in a second, but is there a favorite piece that you have, or is that almost impossible?
It is impossible. The favorite piece is the last one, and that's the one you want to see. You want to see the back of it as quickly as possible and get on to the next one.
Yeah. So I say this. I know you won't say this, but you are very talented and very gifted. This has been one of my favorite graphic novels for the longest. I mean, this is just it gets me emotional just talking about it. So I did want to hop into Road to Perdition a little bit.
Sure.
One of my top 3 movies of all time for a variety of reasons.
Same here.
Yeah. Were you ever worried when you first heard they're going to make it to a movie? Were you concerned at all? Because if I'm wrong, please correct me. But was this 5 years in the making?
4 or 5 years, certainly. Yeah.
So let me start with this. Why is that seems to me like a long time to pour your heart into a project? Is that the norm?
It's not the norm. No, it's not the norm. It is for me. I was always threatened by deadlines and having to take shortcuts to meet deadlines. With Road to Perdition, they removed the deadline pressure. I mean, the project was specifically offered to me non-deadline driven. The only imperative to get it done was to get paid every 25 pages, which is the way it worked. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the question.
The question was: Is 5 years an abnormal time to pour?
It's not the norm, but it was for me, certainly as regards Road to Perdition.
So you're paid every 25. You were paid every 25 pages.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We got an advance, and then we got paid every 25 pages.
As an illustrator and artist, are you okay with that, or would you change the way that's done?
I was okay at the time.
Yeah.
No, I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah. The other thing is,
DC were great in that when you sent the work in, they paid you the same week. So that was always
oh wow, yeah, that's really effective.
a good thing.
Just quickly on DC, because you have so many awesome things about your life. Are you happy with the direction DC's going under right now? I don't know if you've seen the new Superman trailer. Are you happy with the way DC's
I have
going?
seen the new Superman trailer and liked it very much.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know an awful lot about modern comics.
Right.
My collection pretty much golden age, silver age. When I first fell in love with the medium, it's pretty much the comics I know best. So
right,
I kind of lost touch with the way things are going.
Yeah. No, there's a lot to process. There's TV shows and movies.
Oh, sure, yeah.
There's just sometimes it's overwhelming, honestly, Richard. So I got this poster and I got it from Slovenia.
All right.
How cool is it for you to have your name on a movie poster?
It was very cool. It was very cool. It was an exciting time.
Yeah.
It was a 2-year process when we first heard that it might be happening,
right,
or that we might be, or not even that it might be happening, that we might sell the rights. Because even then, there's only a 1% chance. You've sold the movie rights. There's a 1% chance it'll ever get made.
Right.
And we were aware of that. So the actual, that was a process. It took about 2 years from first hearing there was an interest, and I remember the email from my agent in New York when it was eventually confirmed. Variety confirmed that the movie was going to happen, and I got the email, which in the subject line was just $, $$, $$. So but it was a long process, and it seemed for a long time that it wasn't going to happen. I think we were pretty sure of selling the rights, but the actual movie being made only happened because it was sent to Dean Zanuck, who was ultimately one of the producers, and he had been sent so many things that particular week or that particular day, and he said, if I get one more proposal, it's going straight in the bin. And Road to Perdition, the graphic novel, landed on his desk, and he was in the process of throwing it in and it fell open, at the scene that I had laboured so intensely over and so maniacally detailed, of the reflection when the boy and the father arrive in Chicago, and you see the reflection in the windscreen of the car.
Yeah.
And it opened at that page, and Zanuck sort of held back, and he took the book home that night and read it that evening and turned to his wife and said, I think we might have something here. He sent that to his father, Richard Zanuck, who was working on a movie, I think, in South Africa at the time. And Richard, who was the producer of Jaws, and he liked it and said, I think we'll show this to Steven. And Steven was Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
And so that sort of got the ball rolling. Even then, the chances of it being made, maybe it's 10% now, maybe it's 15%. It was still a low percentage. Steven Spielberg liked it. He was originally going to direct it. And he showed it to Tom Hanks. And when Tom Hanks said yes, that's when it became 100% the movie was going to be made. And that wasn't those are exciting days, but that process took 2 years for it to come to fruition.
Wow. Well, and not to mention when the book was created, that took 5. Then this takes another 2. So it's amazing how much. Now we're almost looking at a decade that has gone by since the creation. I mean,
I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose. So. But I always felt we had something. I always thought this is something out of the ordinary, and we're not going to see the back of it too quickly.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: how protective of you are you of this when you finally find out? Okay, they're definitely going to shoot. It's 100%. Are you protective of your characters? Are you protective of what you've created? Are you worried as to who they're going to cast? Right, because this is 5+ years of your work, right?
I was excited as to who they were going to cast. I was excited who was going to direct, and when it was Sam Mendes, it seemed an odd choice because Sam's essentially an English theatrical director. Although I think he'd won the Oscar with American Beauty, which was his only previous film. And that was the headline in Variety. Sam Mendes will direct and Tom Hanks will star in Road to Perdition. And Tom Hanks seemed an odd choice. Yeah. I'm sure it's been said many, many times that he was playing against type when Michael O'Sullivan was essentially a mob hitman, and Hanks was the modern day's answer to James Stewart. He was the good guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So that seemed an odd choice. And then I saw an interview with him where he had a moustache, and he said to the interviewer, "I'm growing this moustache for my next film, Road to Perdition." And I thought, oh, no, O'Sullivan hasn't got a moustache. What's going on? But it worked out. It worked out in the end.
Yeah, it certainly did. And the fact that Conrad Hall makes this movie looks as gorgeous as it does. Like, I mean, I say this a lot, but there's a few movies where you could just turn the volume off and just watch the way it visually looks. Just like a painting on a wall. This movie just looks so gorgeous, Richard.
The way that it was lit, the way each scene was lit, it was like entering a museum. It was just this little illuminated piece of just a fantastic little illuminated scene surrounded by darkness, and it was
What was your first impression, Richard, after you saw your work come to life on the screen at the end of the movie?
It was difficult to put it into words. I saw it at the London premiere for the first time.
Yeah.
And there were scenes up on the screen which were panels of the comic book brought to life, which was a thrill. Even the reflection scene when they arrived in Chicago with the buildings reflecting in the car windscreen. And there's lots of little pieces where inevitably the film and the comic book overlap. So it was. I just met Max Allan Collins for the first time that day at the premiere, and he was sat next to me. I think we were both, deeply proud, and it was just a very exciting thing to have happened.
Is emotional a fair word, Richard?
It was. It was. As I said, it was a long time at the drawing board, and it was great to see it come to life.
Yeah, Hanks always said it was the best work that no one talks about. Had I ever interviewed Hanks, I would have said the same thing. It might be Hanks's best work, Road to Perdition. And you mentioned it's an odd casting choice, but what he does with this is unbelievable. I
think so.
It's his best work, Richard. I think it's my opinion. I think it's his best work.
I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't argue. I think we were unfortunate. I felt there's an Oscar or two in this, and the Oscars it won, I think were what you might call minor Oscars. Hanks should have got an Oscar, I thought.
100%. Yeah.
And at the time, I think Chicago won all the major Oscars that year.
Yeah.
So, I felt that Tom Hanks. I think Paul Newman was nominated. I don't think he won for Best Supporting Actor.
It was his last movie, I think. Richard,
it was his last on-screen role. Yeah, I think.
I
think he did some voiceover for an animated movie afterwards. But it was
he might have done Cars. Yeah. What is there a character? And I know you love the cast, but is there a specific character that you think nailed the graphic novel as far as who they cast for that part? Is there a particular character that you...
No. I know everything. Not one of them would have been the one that I would have cast, and I'd have been wrong every time.
Yeah.
Danny Craig as Connor Looney was great, but an unlikely choice, very unlikely choice. Paul Newman as Old Man Looney. It was between him and Jack Lemmon, apparently.
Wow.
So that was interesting. No, you can't cast your own movie because you'd get it wrong every time.
Yeah. Is there an actor that you thought of that you would have liked to have seen play? Not that you were unhappy with any of these, but
I wasn't at all. No.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I must have thought at the time, who would I like to see in the role of any? Of course, we had Tyler Laughlin as the young Michael Jr., who became Superman.
Yeah, he was unbelievable in that role. Yeah, let me ask you this: you mentioned the scene earlier about the reflection? Is there another scene you feel that best captures your illustrations?
I don't know. I think it's the work as a whole. I put a lot of detail in. One of the reasons it took so long to do is because it was so detailed, and that's really the thing that I do. I put a lot of detail whenever I can, and because it wasn't deadline driven, I was able to. It was the recreating of the Chicago scenes was especially, bringing lost things back to life is one of the things I enjoy doing the most. And this being set in the 20s, I wanted to give it that ambience, that 1920s cold, wet, grey Chicago
Yeah,
feel.
yeah. That's really
A black and white movie and a black and white comic book suited it very well.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you are listed as a writing. Well, one of the things is as a writing credit. Did you have any say in the dialogue, or was it just because you were part of the graphic novel?
Just because I was part of the graphic novel, I have one line that I wrote in Road to Perdition, and that was only because it was one of when it had started to snow. And in the previous scene, because I was drawing in 25-page sections, often there'll be a gap between finishing one section and starting the one after. So in the previous scene, it had been raining. In the next scene, I drew snow. So my one line was, by the time we got home, the rain had turned to snow. And that was my literary contribution to Road to Perdition.
Yeah. How do you and I should have asked this a long time ago. Max Allan Collins, who was the writer of Road to Perdition, how do you guys get together to make this graphic novel? How do you form that alliance?
Well, the alliance was a spiritual one. Before we didn't meet until the actual London premiere of the movie. We didn't speak. I think we'd spoken once on the telephone.
Wow.
After the book was finished.
Right.
But the work spoke to each other's strengths.
Right.
We communicated purely in the sense that I was inspired by what Max was writing, and then he, as we progressed, was fired up by the work that I was sending in. So we played to each other's strengths, although we never actually talked to each other about what we were doing.
Wow, I never would have guessed that. Is there a scene that was omitted from the book that you would have loved for them to have kept?
I think the ending in the book was nice. And
Yeah.
I think where it turns out that Michael Jr. becomes a priest.
Yeah.
In the book, it kind of leaves him hanging. He runs off to join this adoptive family in the countryside somewhere. And it made sense. It made sense of the father's sacrifice. But Michael never picks up a gun. Michael Jr. never picks up a gun, and his journey is one of redemption for his father on his father's behalf. His father sacrifices himself, so his son will never have the life that he's led. And joining the priesthood seemed to be a way of closing that cycle.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And you just stole my next question. I love the scene when Newman and Hanks are talking. And Newman says, "There's only one guarantee: none of us will ever see heaven." And then Hank says, "Michael could."
Yeah.
And then the ending. You talk about reflections, and like when we're looking at Hanks, that gunshot might be the most frightening thing I've ever heard in a movie, because Hanks has been shot, right? And then the idea that he does sacrifice himself, so his son never has to be a murderer, so his son can see heaven, is just. It's maybe one of the most emotional parts of a movie I've ever seen in my life.
I think that is fundamentally what the book is about. It's the father saving the son.
Yeah, and it's the son. I mean, when you think about it too, I thought about this knowing that we were going to talk. He's lost his entire family in a span of what, a few months. He's lost everybody, which is unbelievable, right, Richard?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he could have been a very damaged individual.
Yes.
He comes out of it strong and forgiving.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, his final act in the book is an act of forgiveness when he hears the confession at the very end of the story.
Yeah, that's just beautiful to hear you say that. Is there any scenario, and I guess it's a stupid question, but is there any scenario where the father and son could have made it out together, or this always ends with Michael's death?
Now, I'm trying to remember, because it was a long time ago. I had a theory that the father survived.
Really?
But he gave up his fatherhood in order to do so. When he's shot in the book, I'm not talking about the movie at all, I'm talking about the book. I'm trying to remember this theory that I had. I remember talking to Max about it at the time. when we actually went to the premiere, long after it was all published. When the father is shot, it isn't a fatal wound, but he knows that if he survives, then that dooms the boy. So he tells the priest who is there when he is shot, get him to the hospital, tell them I've died, tell him I've. Just he carries on exactly the same way, but he survives. And my theory, my feeling was we could have done a sequel a while later of Michael Jr. grown up, and he receives a letter from someone who says he claims to be his father. Yeah. And the sequel would have been Michael's journey to find out who this man is who's claiming to be his father.
Oh, and how interesting!
That that is scrambled because I can't really remember. I had it all worked out at the time, and I remember sitting down with Max. We were doing a TV interview just before the premiere, and I said to him I'd had this theory. We never went any further than that, but that was something that I thought at the time.
Richard, what do you think the hardest choice Michael faces as a father is? Is it the ultimate choice, or are there other? There's a lot of choices he has to make along the way. A lot, as a difficult choices.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's lost his wife and his youngest son, and he chooses to go on the run with Michael Jr. I don't really think that there was another option in making that choice. He goes to Chicago and he tries to get help from Capone in the form of Frank Nitti. That help isn't forthcoming.
Yeah.
So that was and then he chooses to take on Capone's mob by stealing their money, basically, by robbing the banks in which the money was safely held, which is going to bring the mob after. And then his choice is to, the thing that drives him is to murder or take revenge by killing Colin Looney.
Yeah.
So he makes a lot of choices. I think the first one he makes is to go on the run and to start robbing the Capone funds is the driving factor that leads him to get his revenge and ultimately to redeem his own son.
Yeah, that's really well said. I have a few more questions, Richard. Thank you for all this time. I really appreciate it. This movie is really about fathers and sons, a lot of it.
Yeah.
The weird rapport and dynamic between Newman and Hanks is so great to watch because Newman wishes that this was his son, that Michael was his son, because he can't even stomach his son. We talked about Daniel Craig, he can't even stomach them. So the choice Hanks makes to kill him is just so, and it had to be so hard to do that, right? Because they clearly liked each other a lot, these two, and it's like this is the way it had to end, in violence and just this. I don't know. What do you think about that, Richard?
I think that is less the case in the book than it is in the film.
Right, correct.
Looney is not a surrogate father to Michael O'Sullivan in the book. It's a much more remote relationship. Michael works for him. He's his gun for hire. He's his soldier. And I think there is an underfeeling that he and Connor Looney had fought together in the First World War.
Right.
There was a kind of a partnership there, but the actual father-son relationship, that was more the movie's doing than anything in the book. But it was a powerful way of telling the story in the different. Again, it comes back to Michael Jr.'s redemption.
Yeah.
That was the thing. For the boy to survive, the father had to. Well, you talked earlier about the choices that he made, and I think everything fundamentally went down to saving his surviving son.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really well said. Is there a part of the movie that really does it for you that you're fond of? I mean, I asked you a similar question earlier about the book, but is there a movie? Is there a scene in the movie that you're really fond of more than others?
I, uh, well, again, because it was such a pivotal moment in the book, and it was the reason the film got made. In a sense, it's that reflection scene.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's such a focal point for me in the book. In the script only said they arrive in Chicago, and I had the idea of this sort of incredibly detailed picture, and it was a full page spread of Michael Jr. and his father reflected in the windscreen with the awesome skyscrapers of
yeah.
1929 Chicago reflected and sort of superimposed over them. And because that was such a focal point of the book, and it's repeated in the movie, and Sam Mendes was talking to me about that particular scene because I'd said this was the focal point for our book, for the way we told the story. And he said he felt it was the same in the movie, and that particular shot had taken him 4 weeks to set up and film.
Wow.
And I said, Sam, I think it took me 4 weeks to draw it.
Wow. Wow.
so
Yeah.
I think that's got to be my favorite part of the.
Oh, that is such a great answer. You know, and it's the moments that he has with his youngest son, right? Teaching him to drive is such a beautiful scene.
Well, again, that's a great
Yeah.
That was my other choice, but that's Max's baby because he based
Gotcha.
that on a real story of his father teaching him to drive.
Oh, okay.
And the same kind of nearly running into a farm wagon or something like that. All of these. That's Max's story.
But even little things, Richard, like when they're both at the restaurant or the diner or the bar where he says, well, how much could I have gotten? He goes, well, you'll never know. I mean, those little moments of his dad and then when he's sitting with the farm woman, Peggy Roeder, who's been on my podcast, she's a wonderful woman. When she's sitting with him and they're watching the son work out in the field, and she turns to him, she goes, he dotes on you. Like, that just and there's just so many of those great father-son scenes, like where he tells him that he was more like him, you know, and I don't know.
I knew you'd be okay because you're like me. Yeah.
Yes, Richard. I mean, those are the scenes. Like this movie, like has aged better than any movie in history. Like this is just such a wonderful movie. I can't stop doting about this movie and your work to make this come alive.
Yes, thank you. As I said to you, it was a very exciting time, and it was not to be forgotten. It was great.
Did you feel that Sam, when you did talk to him, did he pick your brain at all? What was it like dealing with Sam? Because he's definitely a visionary in how he sees things. What was he like?
He and Tom Hanks were very gracious, very accepting of us as bringing us into their circle. After we saw the movie and before they showed the movie. This is just showing off, but when we were in the premiere, and everyone was sat down waiting for the film to start, and Sam Mendes came on stage with Tom Hanks, and he talked about the movie, what we were about to see, and he had Max and I stand up and take the applause of the crowd because he said it was these are the two guys without whom none of us would be here today.
Oh,
so that's Sam and everyone and showed tremendous respect for the source material, given that it was a comic book, and it's not thought of really as a comic book movie, but that's what it is. And we were shown great respect, and it mattered to us because we weren't overlooked, we weren't pushed to one side as you might have feared could happen, but we were embraced by the movie creatives.
Oh, that is awesome because you hear so many stories of when people's work is bought. It's like, now go away, leave us alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in a way, you can understand it. It wasn't our baby anymore; it became theirs.
Right.
And comics and movies are different mediums, or whatever similarities they might have as illustrative narrative processes. They are still two quite different things.
Yeah.
And our job was long done, but I think it was Sam, or it might even have been Conrad Hall before when they were making the movie. So we have to, and they had a copy of the graphic novel on set all the time.
Wow!
And in fact, Spielberg had said before he was still looking to direct it himself, he had said, "This, looking at the graphic novel, this is great. I don't even need storyboards. All the work's been done for me." Which isn't true. Which isn't true. A comic book is not a movie storyboard. But just to have someone like Spielberg say that was a great compliment to the work itself.
Well, yeah, Richard. I mean, you turn to any page. Like, I mean, this is storyboarding at its best. I mean, like, there's
not storyboarding. It's not.
No. What I'm saying is, like, there's nothing that they could do that could top what you did. You see what I'm saying? Like, I get what you're saying. It's not like it's much more detailed than storyboarding, but like, I think he was paying you the biggest compliment imaginable.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. That's be on my gravestone.
Yeah. You know, the other thing I wanted to say was, and this will be the last thing I say, is, you know, just the work in general, the way that this comes to fruition. You have to be so proud of this. Like, this has to be your baby. Richard, I thought I saw where you sometimes sell, because I would love to buy one. You sometimes sell pages or your artwork. Is that a thing? Because I would love to get that out there. I would love to purchase one. I would love. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd be very welcome to purchase one. Quite a few have been sold over the years. But, how does somebody do? Do you just spontaneously put them up? Is there a website people can go to? No, there isn't. There isn't. All I can do is give you the page numbers and say, well, this one's available and this one's available, and you know, the best idea is you tell me which pages you might be interested in and give me some options, and I will tell you if they're available.
Now, how does that work, Richard? Are these like, because I know there's a ton of people that love this movie, have a great following that would be interested. Like, people can contact me and I can always forward it to you, but like, how are these, like actual pages, or what is being sold? Like, okay.
Let me show you.
Okay.
These are my remaining pages of the original artwork for Road to Perdition.
Oh my God!
So you get
that's original artwork.
That's the original artwork.
Oh my Lord! Oh my God, Richard! I was not expecting that. Oh my gosh!
So, as I said, these are some of the ones that.
Oh my gosh, that is stunning.
So they're just slightly large. The actual live art is just slightly larger than the published work.
So I'll tell you what, Richard, if people reach out to me and they're curious, I will pass that on to you if that helps you in any way. I would love to do that. Please
do. I'm perfectly happy to sell pages.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're just stuck at the back of the wardrobe. I mean, I think I have one on the wall, but that's it.
Oh my gosh! Like, looking at those is maybe speechless almost. Those are beautiful. Well, are you still doing? Are you still illustrating, Richard, at a page?
Yeah.
So tell me about is there anything you want to throw out there about what you're currently working on?
Unfortunately, I'm working on a book called The Witch's House, which is one I've written myself. Again, it's not deadline driven. It's a big it's probably my last big project because I'm not getting any younger. And I can't really say an awful lot about it, but I'm going to give you a sneak preview of a page that I'm actually working on this page at the moment. It's nearly finished, so I'm going to show you. And this is a lot larger. This is A3 size.
Oh my God, that's beautiful, Richard. Wow. Oh my God. Yeah, I can see it perfectly. Oh, it's like a painting. Oh my God. Boy, you are talented, Richard. I tell you.
Perdition took me 4 years. This is probably going to take me something similar. I don't know. Maybe it's not quite as long as that.
Is it, Richard? Is what you do? I don't want to use this word but there's no other word I can think of. Is it therapeutic in any way?
No. It's the opposite.
It's a lot of pressure, right?
It's madness. It is. It's not the only pressure is to do the best that you can do.
Yeah.
And to challenge yourself and really to make every time you sit at the drawing board better than the last time.
Oh, that is
Don't find a standard, improve, and never stop trying to improve.
Oh, that's terrific. And the last thing I'll say is this: we mentioned earlier, we mentioned your work, Max's work. We mentioned Conrad Hall. We mentioned Sam Mendes. The other person I wanted to mention who makes this movie really work is the composer Thomas Newman. His music just it makes it pop. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. Richard, I am a huge fan, and I'm 100% going to be in contact with you about.
Oh, please do. Yeah, you'll be very welcome out, and I'll certainly. Always give me choices, though, because a few pages have been sold.
Yes, I certainly will, and I want to thank you for giving me time today, and I will definitely send you a copy of this when I post it.
Oh yes, please do. Yes,
Richard, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Oh yes, same to you, and a very happy New Year to you and everyone who's listening.
Yes, Richard, Happy New Year to you. Thank you.